All right, so I just want to give you a little bit of an update here on your Ranger XP. So what I'm looking at is I'm just concentrating on fuel pressure problems and fuel pump problems and things like that. I'm not looking at anything else unless you tell me to. But what I'm going to make a couple suggestions in that regard later. But for now, we're just going to stick with what we see here. So you had given me a piece of a fuel pump filter sock. I have that still here on my desk, and you told me that you had somebody put a new fuel pump in it, and you're not sure if they actually put a fuel filter on it. So we have questionable things going on inside the fuel tank. You also mentioned something in the line of the fellow had said there was a lot of mud or debris in the tank, and that he'd taken the tank out and drained it out to clean it out. So first thing I want to know, before I even pull that out to check fuel filters or anything like that, I want to actually see if the fuel pump is actually giving me pressure to operate the bike. Because what I notice when I start it, it's hard to start. And also when I move it around, after you dropped it off, it stalled 2 or 3 times trying to get it to the back of the shop and behind the shop into the parking area. And it really shouldn't do that. So might be a fuel pressure, it might be a fuel filter causing a problem, but we're going to look at just going to look at this fuel pressure here, so I can give you an idea of how things should be working and how they're not. So when I turn on the key, I've got my fuel pressure gauge hooked up. I actually have another one on the fuel rail back there. I like to double check things to make sure the gauges are agreeing with each other. So when I turn the key on, I should see the pressure go up to about somewhere around 58 psi for this, plus or minus 2. And I also should see the pressure hold there after the pump finishes its cycle, and the pressure stay there. Probably might drop like a couple of pounds, and then after quite a long time, long after we're gone to bed, it would slowly drain off all the way back to 0. So I don't know exactly how long that takes. I just know it takes quite a while. So I'm going to turn the key on. Pump is going to do its normal cycle for a couple seconds and then shut off, and then we'll see what happens. So we're only reaching about 48 psi. And as you can see, the pressure is dropping quickly back off to 0. So it's not supposed to do that. And I actually have my other gauge hooked up on the rail just to make sure, and both gauges are telling me the same thing. So that tells me I have a regulator problem, or I have a check valve problem, or something along those lines that is causing us to bleed pressure and fuel back off into the tank. So for sure you can see where it would be hard to start, because let's say I just got in your side-by-side, I've turned the key on, but I say, oh, I forgot to put my seatbelt on. So I'm going to put my seatbelt on. Takes me a minute to move that around. I close the door, and then I reach down for the key. I'm already down to 20 psi, and you can see where I'm going with this. So we don't have the proper fuel pressure to actually start the machine properly. So when I do turn the key on, which I'm not going to do, you're going to have to take my word for this part. When I do turn the key on in the start position, the engine starts rolling, the pressure does start building back up, but because the engine's already trying to gobble up fuel, it doesn't go as fast to 48 psi. It actually builds up a little bit slower than that. So not a lot slower, so let's say about 3/4 that speed, and then it goes up to about 55 psi, and the needle flutters around there quite a bit when it's at that pressure. So I can tell you that all that stuff is not working the way it's supposed to. So all of the possible issues that causes that are in that fuel pump assembly. So a new regulator, that could be a regulator problem. It could be the check valve in the pump. It could be a broken line in the fuel pump assembly with a hole in it. All that stuff is is part of that assembly in the tank before I even pull it out and check to see if there's actually a fuel filter on it. So what I'm going to recommend is I'm not going to take the time to pull that assembly off and try to figure out and pull it out and check and see if there's a filter there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a complete new drop-in assembly, aftermarket one. It won't be a Polaris one. It'll be an aftermarket one, so they cost about half the amount that Polarises do. And that comes with a new pump, new regulator, new pickup, new filter, all pre-assembled, and it even comes with a new PFA nut that you're supposed to replace every time you remove that pump and put the pump back in, and the new seal that comes with it. So if you bought a rebuild kit for that assembly, you would actually have to buy that PFA nut and the seal that goes with it separately, because it doesn't come as part of that kit. So anyway, so that's what I'm going to recommend for that part, and we'll talk about. I noticed a couple other little things here just quickly, so I'm gonna probably ask you later if you want some other things checked over. I noticed that clamp on the back side of the airbox. So these clamps are what hold your airbox closed. So if I open those clamps, the bottom of the airbox comes out, and that's where your air filter is. This one here is not fastened. I never looked at the other ones. I always check the engine oil in any machine that comes in the shop, and I noticed that yours has a whole bunch of extra oil in it. So if you've checked the oil in it before, then when you pull the dipstick out, you would know that there's a high and a low mark. Your oil level right now is a little bit more than twice what the distance between the high and low mark above the high mark. So you've got a bit extra oil in there. It doesn't really need to be in there. So those are just little things that I noticed. So but we'll talk later about we get this problem sorted, and if you wanted me to check over a few other things to make sure everything's ship-shape, then I can do that. Anyway, if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to send you an estimate, and we'll be talking soon.